All right, folks, we are driving it home with the professor. I'm in my office. I'm not in a car. It almost looks like I might be in some sort of CIA black site with the white walls behind me. Uh, anyway, pretty lucky to have Raleigh Peterkin on the show today. I was kind of made aware of him by a really good friend, a mutual friend, Kyle Sermonara, after I did a conversation with Kyle. And he said, somebody you should really talk to is Raleigh Peterkin. So I'm going to have Raleigh introduce himself, let you guys know why maybe he thinks he's interesting, and then I have a bunch of questions based on what he's doing, what he's not doing, what he's got coming up, and kind of go from there. So I present to you Raleigh Peterkin.
No, thank you for having me on the show. It's an honor to be here and talking with you. I've heard a lot from Kyle over the years, and I'm excited to chat. So yeah, my story is I wrestled in college at the University of Pennsylvania, and I was never an All-American in college. I fell short 3 years in a row in the round of 12. But I was always kind of right there. And after college, I took the degree and I worked on Wall Street for 2 years. I worked for the Royal Bank of Canada, trading corporate bonds in Manhattan, and during those 2 years, I didn't really do much of anything in terms of working out or training. One day, actually, Kyle and I went and wrestled in an open tournament one time, and we both won it, and that was fun. Yeah, other than that, I didn't really do much of anything. Didn't even belong to a gym. And I came down to Peru to visit an old friend of mine named Ben, who wrestled in college with me, Ben Ryder, and he was fighting MMA down here. And on the last day of my visit, we went and trained at the gym with the guys. And his coach, I wrestled with him, and I took him down. He was a wrestler himself, and he was like, "Oh man," like he took us out for drinks afterwards, and he was like, "You should come down and train and coach and compete." And he's like, "I can tell you still want to compete." And I'm like, "No, that's stupid." I'm like, "That's makes no sense. I have a good job." Like I was like, "That's whatever." And I went back and I sat at my desk for the next few weeks, and it just kind of kept running through my head over and over again, and eventually, I just decided it was what I had to do. It was sitting there staring me in the face, and it was partially the competing part that I missed, and partially just that I needed some adventure in my life. I was sitting behind a desk for 12 hours a day, crunching numbers, and I need to get out there and do something. I felt like, and so I'm a big fan of drastic change. I think with a lot of change comes opportunity, and so I knew that I was young. I was 26, didn't have a family to support or anything. So there's only one time in life to do something like this, and so I just pulled the trigger and moved down to Peru. I've been down here for 10 months now. I've fought 5 times, 3 of them professionally. I'm undefeated. I'm 3-0. And last night I just won my pro debut in submissions.
Yes, so gotta have the twister. Eddie Bravo would be happy, but all the wrestling fans, like collegiate wrestling fans, as you were telling me, it's the guillotine from wrestling with just the added neck crank, right?
Yeah, I think I watched. I think the first time I saw it was Tony D'Souza hit it in I think jungle fight or something like that in an MMA match.
Tony D'Souza is Peruvian, right?
Yeah, he's Peruvian. He lives down here actually. He lives up in the mountains by Cusco. I've chatted with him a little bit and been trying to schedule a time to train with him or whatever. But yeah, he invented the Peruvian necktie, which I actually first learned. I was rolling around at Balance one time in college with CERM, and someone showed me the Peruvian necktie, and they were like, "Oh, the movement's funny." Now I'm down in Peru, and I hit that once in a while. I was thinking that's crazy. Where was I? Oh yeah, the
Twister.
The Twister. I saw him hit that, and I just went on YouTube and looked at a few Eddie Bravo videos, and I was like, man, this makes so much sense for a wrestler because, in collegiate wrestling, you're all, you start in the referee's position, and it's all about control and throwing in like what we would call riding legs, but you guys would call hooks. And so, just for a wrestler, it's a very comfortable position that, I can kind of feel my way around in.
So you had something interesting happen with this match, regardless, right? You were supposed to be matched up against somebody else, and they kind of backed out, and there was a replacement. Like, is there some sort of backstory to that, or is it just as simple as I put it?
Yeah, so this is a kind of a funny story actually. Like when I first came down here, it was like my first month down here. I knew like nothing about jiu-jitsu or submissions or anything like that. I trained for like a month at Henzo Gracie's in New York. But like they put me in like the white belt class there, and I was just like, it was not. They wouldn't let me do the blue belt class, and like I didn't really learn a ton. Um, so I've been down here like less than a month, and I entered in this. It's not jiu-jitsu, but it's lucha libre, which like no gi jiu-jitsu basically,
Submission.
and submission wrestling, right? And I won the tournament. Like I didn't submit anyone, but I just won on points, like using my wrestling, and I beat some like guys, purple belt and like some other guys down here. And the guy who was the referee of that tournament was a local black belt who has his own school, and he talked to my coach afterwards and challenged me. He was like, I want to do a super fight with him because they do these super fights during MMA events, and that was a long time ago. And so he backed out of that fight. Then we were supposed to fight like a while ago in submissions, and he backed out of that last minute. And then there's another time we were supposed to fight, and the event got canceled or something. So we were supposed to fight in this one the other day, and like he kind of like everyone was telling me he's gonna cancel, and he canceled last minute. And I posted a thing on Facebook in Spanish. It was like, he backed out, and then he was like, oh, it's just because your guys are organizing the event and all this stuff, and it kind of turned into this whole. I was like, it was one of those moments where I was just like, I'm having like a beef with a guy in Spanish here in Peru. It just kind of like once in a while like hits me. I'm like, how did I get to this? Like where
Kind of surreal. So let's kind of
yeah.
let's go back. Let's rewind the clock. Where are you from originally? Where did you grow up? So that we get some context of like what got you to where you're at.
So I'm from the Boston area. I'm from Massachusetts, and the thing about wrestling is that wrestling in Massachusetts is not that high level. Like it's getting a lot better, but like compared to states like Pennsylvania and New Jersey, it's really not that level. So like I mean the Pennsylvania guys like growing up, man, they just have the craziest level of competition, and
Right.
so I used to have to travel down to tournaments down here when I was a kid, and then I eventually went to prep school in New Jersey for 2 years at Blair Academy, which
Oh
is
yeah,
like one of the top.
Blair's known for producing athletes.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of top guys, like Steve Mocco. I mean, there's tons of. I mean, he's the only one that fights MMA, I believe.
Well, I think Jamal Patterson, but I don't know.
I think he did go there. I think he was there for like a year or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. Because you get to do like an extra year of high school if you go to prep, right? Is that how that works?
Yeah, yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Like, it depends. If you go there like as a freshman, some guys just start right away. But like when I went there, I'd done 3 years of regular high school, and then they made me repeat my junior year, so I did another 2 years. So I did 5 years of high school.
Okay.
So
So
took
are
I
you?
did 5 years high school, 5 years college.
So it looks like you had some talent in wrestling. You just couldn't make the gains that maybe you could somewhere else. So you moved to New Jersey to kind of become a better wrestler and go to the Blair Academy. Is that about right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I kind of reached all my goals up there, and I won states as a freshman, and then I won the New England tournament as a junior, and it just kind of like I just kind of felt like I had a ceiling there a little bit. So I had to move on, and it was a tough decision, but Blair's the number one team in the country. When I was there, we won. Uh, I think we were the number one team both years. Can't remember though, but yeah, I mean the level of competition in that wrestling room was crazy. Guys, you get guys that there's a guy Kellen Russell on our team who was JV one year, and he went and like over the summer won the national tournament in Fargo. Like and he was a two-time NCAA Division I champion in college,
Okay.
and he
So
was JV.
you were cutting your teeth with some pretty tough guys. Then I'm assuming you applied to a bunch of different schools. You get in at Penn. Was Penn one of like the top places you want to go to?
Yeah, so actually it was the only school I applied to, and I applied regular decision. It was kind of crazy, but I knew that I wanted to go to one of the Ivy League schools. It was something that I was thinking about, and I kind of got interested in finance and business, and I just decided that was the route I was going to take because the Wharton School is the number one school in the country,
Right.
and it was kind of it was funny. You know, I always kind of knew I was going to work on Wall Street. Like I was really interested in it in high school. I used to read a lot of books about it and everything, and it was always something that I kind of saw myself doing, um, and I did do for 2 years.
Okay. So now, when you went to Penn, was what was more important for you? Was getting this education more important for you, or was being a wrestler more important, or were they kind of equal?
So it's interesting when I got a little bit burned out of wrestling, I would say, in high school at the end when I was at Blair, and I kind of when I was going to college, I was thinking, okay, let's just get into a good school. Um, and my freshman year, I had a tough time, and I actually quit wrestling for about half the year, and then I realized I kind of needed that. I realized how much I really loved it, and how much I missed it when I was away from it. Like I felt like an incomplete person. And I think that most athletes that are passionate about what they do would feel the same way. And so I came back to it like with a vengeance, and it really became something that drove me and really saved me in a lot of ways. And and I still I fell short of my goals, but I think that if not for wrestling, I would be I'd be in a ditch somewhere. Who knows?
Okay. Well, I mean, and that's always an interesting thing because, like it's either the achievement or not achieving certain goals that puts us where we are, right? And kind of puts us
Yeah,
on a
yeah.
path of the decisions that we ultimately make. So that would be, an interesting switch to flip is does Raleigh Peterkin go to Peru if he wins the NCAA's,
I,
if he doesn't fall short, you know?
no, I've thought about this a million times. Something that I always think about, and I had this really big revelation about this one time. It's kind of a long story, not that good story, but yeah, no. Basically, it's something that I've run through a lot, and I don't like to say, I think a lot of people say like, oh, if I wouldn't do it any other way, if I could do it, I feel like that's just like a lot of times rationalizing when something shitty happens. Like people are just like, oh, I wouldn't have it any other way. Like,
Right.
you know what? Like, it's kind of like, I do want it another way. Like,
Well,
but
look, winning's always better than losing, right? I mean, when
right,
when we're competing. So,
yeah. But no, to your point, I definitely agree with you that I run it through my head, and maybe if I'd won nationals, I would have been happy with content with my the achievement, and I would have just maybe still been sitting behind a desk, working my hours and crunching numbers. Who knows? Like, I mean,
not having
it's
burnt the
scary.
boat, not having kind of changed your life. So you, unfortunately, you don't achieve your goals, but you do get a great college education. I mean, like you said, graduating from Penn. I mean, that's paperwork that not a lot of people have. You get your job in Manhattan. You move. You start working for the Royal Bank of Canada. Anytime before this, right? Anytime before your trip to Peru, had this ever come to mind where you're saying, I'm going to just, hey, maybe one day I'm going to go do a walkabout. I'm going to crocodile Dundee it. I'm just going to leave and do it. Or did this was just like, wow, I'm going to do this now, and it was that switch just flipped?
No, I mean I'd be lying if I didn't say that it's not something that I always have thought about in different ways. Um, it's always been a sort of internal battle I've had between, I have been generally interested in finance and wanted success in that, and just like anything else, it was something that I was working towards, and it was a goal, and it was a thing that I did, and I wanted to be the best at that, and I studied it and everything like that. But then I did always have this pull, kind of like, as I always describe it like this, like as children, kind of, when you're young and you see like adventure stories and books or whatever, people going off to war, or pirates or whatever. You have these like adventures in your head, and you kind of no one ever as a kid and says like I want to grow up and sit behind a desk kind of, and that's go out for a happy hour every day. Like that's not something that the idealist child inside of you wants to do. And so I've always had that as a very strong force in my life, as something that I've always wanted to kind of go out and explore, and I need to be I worked 4 different internships in college, but the one summer that I think I enjoyed the most was when I worked landscaping. Actually,
Oh,
like
all
I worked
right.
landscaping one summer, and I just busted my ass all summer. Like I would come home and just pass out at like 8 o'clock, and just it was grimy. I got poison ivy. We're clearing brush, and like
Now
it was just
was this internship provided through Penn, or was this just a job you got for the summer? Like
no,
I
no. I'm
can't
saying
see.
no, no. I'm saying I worked like other internships in finance,
I
and
got you.
like
Okay.
this was just a job that I worked one summer. I
All right.
wouldn't
All
consider
right. I just want to make sure.
it.
I don't want Wharton sending me a cease and desist saying no, we don't get our guys internships, raking leave. You know.
No, no, this was after my freshman year when like I said, I had a hard time freshman year and I kind of went and worked this job just like grinding it out, like busting my ass, and I kind of like really it really refreshed me in a lot of ways. And I like physical labor in some ways. I mean, obviously that over a long period of time it's a different story, and um I don't want to say like, it's tough. It was really tough, but I like doing things and having something to show for it.
So, so we could say is at some point, much before going to Peru your first time, this could have been a possibility. If not Peru, maybe a different type of drastic change.
Yeah, definitely. I think that I was kind of primed in a way for this, and I saw the window of opportunity and jumped on it. It was I was down there, and he said, he gave me the kind of whole thing. We want you to come down here and train, and the whole setup and everything like that, and just it kind of hit me that day. It was like, all right, I think I'm gonna do this.
So let me ask you, up until this point, you're basically like a parent's dream child, right? You get in,
Yeah.
you go to a really good high school, state champion this, you go to Penn, you're working on Wall Street, and then you call mom, dad, whomever, and say, oh, by the way, I'm quitting, and I'm gonna be basically homeless in Peru, living on Ben's couch, learning how to fight better than what I fight now. Like, how did that go over? How'd that conversation go?
So, I mean, they weren't happy at all, and you know what? Like, I expected that, and I understood it, so I didn't, like, they were patient, you know, for their part, like they were patient, more patient than they could have been. I know that if I was in their shoes, I would have been very upset. It's not just like leaving this Wall Street job that they were proud of in many ways, and it's not just that. But it's not like I'm gonna go travel or something like that. But like the whole MMA thing too, they didn't really know much about MMA, and like to them it's just bloody cage fighting and then worse in South America, so they weren't happy, no, and they were fairly upset about it at first. I think that as time has gone on, they've grown to accept it, and they've become a lot more understanding, and they're very supportive of me. I have to say that they have always been very supportive of me in whatever I've done, and I do really appreciate that.
So shout out to mom and dad, as the kids say.
Yeah.
So did their being upset, did that give you any kind of like pause to say, hey, maybe I am making the wrong decision, or you were pretty steadfast about what you were doing?
I had already walked over the gangplank. Like once I made up my mind, it was just like there was just no turning back at all. It was just like I was fully 100% committed. I kind of like couldn't really allow myself any bit of doubt to creep in because I knew I just had to pull the trigger, and it was not like a great plan at first. I didn't really have anything planned. I didn't really know
Right.
much about what I was going to do. I didn't really know much about Peru. I didn't really know much about MMA. Like I just kind of was like, I'm just going to commit to this fully. I crossed the Rubicon. The first thing I did was I went online and I booked a one-way flight. That was the very first thing I did. I made up my mind and just going to book the flight before I told anyone, before I did anything. It was just my plan. So
So
yeah, I mean, it made me feel bad that they were upset, and I felt guilty about making them upset, but no, it didn't affect
well,
my
that's
decision.
great because I mean, here you are 10 months later, and the cool thing about parents is they're gonna love you for the most part. Good parents are gonna love you regardless, as long as you're
Right.
safe, happy. So See now, again, so I told you I kind of run these things off the seat of my pants. I
Right.
You worked 2 years on Wall Street, so before I didn't realize that. So I thought, no, maybe this kid's or this guy's a millionaire already, or he's got a ton of money and he could just be like the McAfee guy and move somewhere and have a harem of women, and he's living in Peru, but it's almost like living in Manhattan. So it's not like you moved to Peru independently wealthy.
No, I mean I had a fair amount of savings from my work for someone my age probably, but no, it's not. I've had to adjust my lifestyle like crazy, and this is something that this has been one of the biggest. It's been like a shock, but at the same time, I think I've learned like tons of lessons from it. Just having to live in fairly minimal conditions. Right now, I'm in my apartment. I feel like a decent apartment now. So
And beautiful artwork.
yeah, well, it came furnished, so I don't know what it is. But I mean, then the cost of living is drastically lower down here, so that helps. And it help like it's a lot easier to be an MMA fighter down here, where the cost of living is so low. Like I could cite examples all day where like the rent I'm paying like freaking like 1/8 of what I was paying in New York, and for like a place that's like way nicer,
Well,
and just like
what city in Peru are you in? So we haven't we.
I'm in Lima.
Okay, so you're in the capital, right?
Yep.
All right.
So yeah, I mean like I could take a cab to practice and it's like 10 soles, which is like $3, and it's like a 30-minute cab ride. It's like it's crazy. I get my hair cut for $2, and
It seems a bit overpriced looking at your hair right now.
I should get your haircut.
Which is and this is free. I do this myself. So
Oh, that's good. That costs nothing. Okay. Um, no, so it's like the cost of living is a lot cheaper down here, and that makes it a lot
the
easier
money that
to.
you were able to save, it kind of there's a multiple now. So if it's worth 4 or 5 times more, you can kind of live a bit longer. Now, do you do anything down there so you get paid to do your pro submission matches or your MMA fights? So I'm assuming that helps a little bit with kind of
Yeah,
having some money
and
coming in.
I coach as well. So I coach at the gym and I get paid for that as well.
So you got some money coming in. You're not just siphoning off from the savings, because then after a while that'll be gone.
Yeah, of course. And the other thing is like I've just learned to live a lot more cheaply than I was living in New York. I don't go out drinking a ton. I don't go out to fancy dinners. It's just like a different culture down here. The thing is like when I was in New York, all my friends were ballers and we're spending big money, hundreds of dollars every night. And so when you're just around that, you just start doing it. And when I'm down here, all my friends are fighters who are just kind of eking out a living, and so it just kind of like rubs off. And I lived in the back of the gym for like a month. Like there are some beds in the back of the gym. I lived there when I was in between apartments. And I was paying nothing. So that's something that I would have found like inconceivable like a year ago when I was working. Like I would have been like, oh, no way I could ever do this. Like I would have gone down the street and gotten like a luxury hotel or something. Like there's a funny story I tell like about how much I've changed. Like when I was visiting Peru on vacation, we were in Cusco where like Machu Picchu is, and my friends, we all got a hostel, and I was like, this place is gross. I can't stand this. Like I'm gonna go get a hotel, and I was being like, kind of a dick, really. And I went down and got my hotel like for like $100-something, because I was like, this is my vacation time, and I want to do it right. And nowadays, like I would be like disgusted with that. I'd be like, oh my god, that much money for a hotel? No, I'm staying in this dirty hostel. I'll be fine. So
Well, let me ask you, like, so you've been there for 10 months, right? Is that how long you've been down there?
yeah.
So you've been down there for 10 months, like how do you feel from a standpoint of like, are you happy? Are you, I think I know what the answer is, but who's a better person and who's a happier guy? The Raleigh Peterkin that was working on Wall Street, or the Raleigh Peterkin who's living in Lima, Peru right now?
I mean, 100% right now. Like, do I get frustrated? Are there a lot of times I'm frustrated down here? Like, and and for the short term, it's like, oh man, I just wish I could just get back and like just deal with this and be like, definitely that happens. But I mean, I really I love my life down here. I'm not like I get to work out every day. You know, I'm not as stressed. You know, it's really taxing my body. Wasn't sleeping a lot when I was in New York, and just I'm just generally more fulfilled. I mean, I just have like I really enjoy what I do, and my friends down here. I've made some awesome friends in the gym, guys that you know do anything for, and I get to have cool experiences every day. It's just cool. Like one of the coolest parts about living abroad is that like every little small thing is like kind of an adventure. You go to the grocery store and you're trying to figure out like where something is, and you gotta like ask someone in Spanish, and it's this whole to do with it, and it just becomes like it's an obstacle, and it's difficult, and it's challenging, and it's frustrating, but at the same time, it's you know you're growing and learning something different, and I like that. I like to make things a little bit difficult sometimes.
Now, did you know any Spanish before you moved to Peru?
I took it in high school, but like I really didn't remember just about anything. I could barely speak, but um, now I wouldn't say I'm fluent. I'm very conversational though. Like I've done a few interviews in Spanish recently, um, and you know, there's never a time when I need to say something and I can't say it, or you know, I can figure out how to get around in the language.
Okay. So, I mean, that's awesome because that's really kind of what we hope as kind of martial arts instructors, that people's lives are better when they become more and more committed to the martial arts or to their kind of this physical endeavor. So that's like definitely great for me to hear because I know the same thing has happened for me, kind of not to the degree of moving to Peru, but you know, changing my life to be a mixed martial arts coach, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, all that other stuff, and I'm way happier now than I was before. So, you know, I
What were you
applaud
doing
you.
before?
What's that?
What were you doing before?
I used to work for a health insurance company as a business systems analyst, so you know I was dreading it and hated my boss, and was just like I needed an out. And very similar to you, my parents were really upset at me for quitting because you know they're immigrants, and you know they thought having a stable job was where it's at. And here I am, so many years later. I own you know 2 mixed martial arts academies. I have a super successful YouTube channel now with guys like you on it and that kind of thing. But you know, pretty lucky to have the life that we have to be able to do what we do. Um, Now, from a switching up a little bit, let's talk about the training because you know
Yep.
when I heard that you were in Peru, I'm like, well, what the like, who? By Peru, you could train anywhere.
No.
You were in Manhattan, you could train in Manhattan. You could have gone to Florida, California. You could go one country over, Brazil.
Well,
Now I
I
know
really
why.
couldn't.
But do you know what I'm saying? Like, have you done any kind of trips, training trips, and how's the training been for you?
So that's something that a lot of people ask. They're like, why Peru? You know, we could go to Brazil or the United States is the best place in the world. When I went back to when I was back in New York recently, I went to Henzo Gracie's and kind of like stopped in to hi to my old professors there. He was like, why not train here? I mean, not in a bitter way. He was just curious. You know, he was just saying like, you know, you're in the United States. It's like the best MMA in the world. Why would you go to Peru? Um, I think there's a number of different reasons. Like the reason why I did it is, you know, like I said, the adventure of it before, but also like my gym, the coach at my gym is a guy, Ivan Iberico, and he's you know, he's the guy that took me out to drinks and convinced me to come down here, and he really started my MMA career, and he's just a badass old school fighter. He's like 42-2 or something. But you know, doesn't say that on Sherdog because a lot of his fights were like bare knuckle in the back of whatever in Brazil. And
I like the way you covered yourself because these guys on the internet are ruthless with accuracy.
right, yeah. So he says he's 42-2. You know, Sherdog has him I think like 13-1 or something like that.
Regardless, I mean, you know fighting now, and you can see if he's a badass or not. 42-2 or 0-0. If the guy's a
Yeah.
badass, he's a badass.
Yeah, well, you can go online and see his YouTube videos, and they're like no time limit, like in a ring with bare knuckles, no rules. Like, I mean, it was just he's old school, and it was a different sport back then, really. And he's really really taught the warrior mentality of kind of just like no excuses, just get out there and do your thing and train hard. And so, I get to work with him every day, and he really has taught me a ton. And, it's really like very personal, one-on-one and stuff all the time, and it's just kind of us. And so that's one thing that I don't think maybe you get at a lot of places, a lot of other places, and I'm lucky to have that. And then the last thing is what we've already talked about is financially. Like when I was in New York, I was paying for Henzo Gracie's, it was $230 a month, and I was going to Church Street, which is like $100 and something dollars a month. Like, they pay me to train here. Like it's, and the cost of living is so much lower. Like you can live like a decent life down here and fight, whereas you're breaking the bank. I think trying to fight out in New York City, where as the rent is through the roof.
Right.
My rent alone is like twice, and when in New York is like twice what I spend monthly here on everything, kind of.
Right now, it also sounds like it was just as much as it's the training. You keep saying it's the adventure, the opportunity, the relationship. You know what I'm saying? And
yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I kind of getting the feeling like, hey, you wanted to see if if you burned the boat, could you survive? If you could put yourself in a place where you barely know anybody, hey, what's going to happen to Raleigh? I mean, that's the feeling I'm getting.
100%. Like it's like the kind of like I was talking about before, like minimal living, cutting back on all these things. Like there's a lot of stuff that like you think is indispensable to your life that once it's missing, you're kind of like, I don't really need that anymore. So yeah, it's been like a lot of that, like a test of kind of it's a challenge, like I've said, and then that's kind of why I started MMA in the first place too. Like MMA was always something that I my roommate just walked in.
Tell them to be quiet, please.
We're doing an interview here.
It's all good, man. To have him pop in if he wants to say hi.
So yeah, MMA was always something that like people would ask if I wanted to do it, and I was like, no, I can't do that. Like I'm not tough enough and all this stuff. And so it kind of became in my mind like a challenge. Like it was something that like I was like, can I do it? Like I think someone. Have you seen the interviews with CM Punk? Who just signed with UFC.
No, I mean I've been following the goings on, but I haven't been
Right. There's a lot of controversy because everyone's like, oh, he's 0-0, everything like that. But he did an interview, and I think he put it really well. He was like, he's 36 years old, and he was like, you know what? I don't know what I want to do with this. He's like, I just want to. He's like, I don't want to become 40 and look back and say, oh shit, I never did it. It's he talks about how he doesn't like to live with regret, and he doesn't want to look back and say that he never tested himself in this, and that's how I kind of initially got pulled into it. It was something that I said, like I don't know how I will be as a fighter. I don't know, and if I don't try it though, I'll never find out. And I found recently like an old bucket list I'd written like years and years ago. I think it was 2007. And one of the things on it was fight an MMA fight. So it's cool. I've done that.
So now, what's kind of we talked about CM Punk saying he doesn't want to live with regrets and kind of like getting signed with the UFC. Ultimately, what's your goal in MMA? Like where do you see yourself? Where would you like to be? That kind of thing.
Well, I mean, I would love to fight for the UFC and become a world champion. I think that's everyone's goal, and or any big Bellator, any big promotion. I'd love to get there, and I think that right now I'm still in a learning phase where every fight I'm learning a little bit more, and I want to have another a few fights down here, and not just because I think I need that to get some kind of offer or whatever it is, but I'm moving right now so I can plug my computer in. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, that's all good.
But I need the experience, and for me, I'm in just like I just want to fight as much as possible and get the experience, and what was the original question? Sorry, I just
So
my brain just.
what's your ultimate goal in fighting?
But who knows where it will take me? I don't know. And I I'm having a fun time with it now. I'm training hard and I'm fighting, and I love it. And that's what's kind of important to me for now.
That's awesome. So the experience, as much as the, so I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I like interpreting when I hear things, right?
Yep.
Um, so it's as much the experience and what it's doing for your life as it is the victories and the time in the cage. Is that am I picking up that vibe from you?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, that being said, victory is. I want to win every time, and I don't ever want to lose. I hate losing more than anything else in this world,
Losing,
really.
we can agree that losing sucks for
It's
sure,
awful.
right? And it's a terrible feeling, and no one should ever enter any field of competition, be it combat, golf, darts, whatever you compete in, wanting to lose. You always
No.
prepare to win, right? And you always put that will to win out there. And then what happens happens. The victories will come. They'll, hopefully they never happen, but eventually everybody loses at some point. And it's really the best MMA fighters I've dealt with personally, but also seen as a fan, are the guys that bounce back from losses. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
That do the kinds of things that are
You get some
necessary.
of your best lessons from a loss, but you hope you never have them still, and you don't want to. You really don't. Especially in MMA, a loss in MMA is darker than I think a lot of other sports, and really all combat sports. Like that's one of the things that drew me to wrestling at a young age. Is just that, or like individual sports. Really, like I played baseball and soccer and some other stuff. Like I never really liked it, the team component. Like to me, I loved wrestling because when you win, it's just an amazing feeling. It's like it's one of the best feelings in the world. You just won. Um, you just like conquered another person kind of. And when you
Right.
lose, it's even worse though. It's an awful feeling. And as a kid, I used to cry after every match I lost. When I was 7 years old, I started wrestling, and but it's that struggle that really drew me to it. That you know that you want to go out there and you train as hard as you can. You want to win every match so bad, like, and it really like kind of kind of engulfs you. And
Okay.
so yeah,
So
I
let
think
me let
that's.
me ask you. You said earlier you've had 5 fights, 3 professional. Now,
Mhm.
all 5 fights have been in the last 10 months.
Yeah, I actually I fought 5 fights in 5 months when I came down here, but or no, 5 fights in 6 months, I guess it was. And then I had this grappling match last night. I hurt my finger really bad. I cut it.
Okay.
Um, I cut it on some glass, and I just cut like the tendon, and like kind of like it's swollen, and I couldn't shut my finger for a while. I so that
It's
was
all
hurting
healed
for a
up
while.
now, or how's that tendon? Because those things can be kind of scary when you slice a tendon. It's not good.
Yeah, yeah, it's better now.
Oh, okay, good. So, in those 5 fights, if you were to look back and say, okay, this is Raleigh at 0-0, right, or this is Raleigh 5 fights later, how do you track your growth as a fighter and a competitor in MMA?
Man, like my very first pro fight, take for instance, I think I've been training for like 3 months, like MMA, like maybe 4 months if you include my time in New York, like, um, and that was kind of coming from a very sedentary lifestyle. So I just used my wrestling. It was just a wrestling match, really. Like I just kind of took him down. I threw a few punches and kind of avoided some of his punches. But I look back at that now and like, man, I wish I knew some submissions during that match because like I was in awesome positions. I had guillotines, I had rear naked chokes and stuff like that. But I just didn't know the finer points of it. So like, um, you know, something like that. I mean, I don't have, obviously I won, so I don't have regrets or anything like that. But and I couldn't have done any better. I was kind of learning as fast as I could. But
Right.
that's always been one of my philosophies is to just kind of jump in the deep end. And I always think that the best way to learn something is just by doing it. And
So
that's kind of what I try to do.
have you added those pieces to your game now? Are you more submission oriented than when you first started? Obviously, with the instruction from your coach and all that other stuff. Or are you trying to knock guys out? Like, if you had to kind of quantify your style.
Yeah, I'm definitely more submission oriented. Like the whole, the wrestling kind of mindset of being able to take anyone down, and then looking for submissions. My last fight, I went in with a game plan. I knew he kind of thought I was gonna just try to like take him down right away, so I went and just threw a few like right off the bat. I just went like at his face with uh, jab straights and everything like that, and I kind of just surprised him and rocked him a little bit, and then I submitted him in 38 seconds.
Well,
So
that's pretty awesome, yeah.
I was trying to switch up my strategy there. Like I was trying to come out striking because he wasn't expecting it. So I've definitely worked on my striking a lot because I think any wrestler that's gonna be one of your biggest weaknesses because jiu-jitsu kind of you can pick that up a lot more easily than the striking component.
Okay, especially coming from your wrestling. Now, is there a grappling or wrestling culture in Peru? Do they have like we have wrestling here in New Jersey or Pennsylvania and that kind of thing, or is it kind of not as strong as some other country?
No, they do. They have wrestling. There's like they call it the selection, which is like the top guys at every weight class, and I think they get like a stipend, and they kind of like they train. They have a training center and stuff like that. But it just doesn't have the same infrastructure that we have in the United States, and it's almost like that for every sport down here. They just don't have in the United States, we have the whole collegiate system where
Right.
you go to college and you play on a Division I team. One second, I just realized my Wi-Fi is really far away. That's why it's kind of lagging a little bit. You play on a Division I team, and you have access to high-level coaching and facilities and everything right away. Like here, they don't have collegiate teams for anything.
Okay.
Maybe soccer, but I'm not sure. So we just have the infrastructure, like the fact that like I've wrestled with a lot of the wrestlers down here, and when I tell them that I think I've wrestled like probably like 800 matches in my life, something like that, maybe
Okay.
close to 1,000. Like I don't know, and people are just like stupefied by that. They can't believe that that's possible, and I'm like, I know people that have wrestled a lot more than that. So it's probably like that in every sport down here. They just don't have the same kind of infrastructure, the level of competition and tournaments and training facilities that we have in the States.
So there's just not the machine behind it to make it kind of what it is. So now that you're kind of not kind of now you're living in Peru, you're living in Lima. What are the things that you really like? Just as a well, you're living there, so you're not a tourist, but as a kind of a citizen, a world citizen now of Lima. Like, what do you appreciate about Peru and Lima in particular, and the Peruvian people? Like some things that you're like, hey man, this is really cool, or I didn't realize that I would like this, or so if somebody were to visit Peru, what should they expect?
Yeah. No, I like the term world citizen like you use because it's crazy. Once you kind of go out and live here, you meet tons of interesting people from all over the world, like not just Peru. You kind of just meet all this whole community of people. Like my roommate is a teacher at a school here. He's from Michigan, and he lived in Egypt for 4 years before this. He was just teaching, and you meet these people, these really, really interesting people from all over the world. My other friend taught in Mexico before this, so that's really cool. You just kind of get like a community of people that are interested in travel and all this other stuff. And so let's see. Aside from MMA, though, like in Lima's a beautiful city. It's right on the beach. I live like literally 2 blocks from the beach. You can
Oh,
walk.
nice.
You can walk right out there and walk that. The beaches aren't that great here, but a lot of people surf. It's a big surfing culture, and if I've had a lot of friends come down here, and you can kind of travel around the country for really cheap. We took a bus like we just stop at these different cities every kind of like 3 or 4 hours, and
I know Harrison enjoyed it a little bit when he was down there.
yeah, Harrison had a great time. Yeah,
Yeah.
we went and did we went to the Amazon when he was here, and we did this tour of the Amazon. It was a 3-day tour, 3 days, 2 nights, and they took us in a boat like 5 hours up the Amazon, and we camped out in this thick ass jungle. Your mosquitoes by like the dozens, you'd be killing these things, and our guide, we had this jungle guide that this guy like grew up in the jungle, and he caught an alligator with his bare hands, uh, and he climbed up in the tree and brought a sloth down out of it, and we went fishing for piranhas.
So
That's
all things that aren't happening in Manhattan for sure.
no. It's yeah, it's really different. A lot of just crazy experiences I've had down here. Met a lot of interesting people
So,
and
Raleigh, we're going to be wrapping it up here in a second, but I know you have something actually pretty interesting that's going to be bringing you back to the United States, to New York City. You want to tell everybody what's going on there?
yeah, I'm really excited about this. I'll be wrestling in the Grapple at the Garden on December 21st in Madison Square Garden in New York City, and it's a really cool event. I actually went and watched it last year when I was working and living in New York, and so it's a collegiate dual meet setup, I guess, and then off to the side they're doing like kind of exhibition show, I guess, of MMA fighters who used to wrestle. I guess not all of them, because there's 3 different Gracies that are actually wrestling.
Yeah.
But,
so now, are you doing a submission match or a wrestling match?
It's wrestling. It's like it's freestyle wrestling. So it's kind of like, you know what? There's a lot of I'm sure that in jiu-jitsu there's the same types of people, but there's a lot of people in wrestling that are like very purist and are like, you know, we want to keep our guys out of MMA and keep them on the Olympic circuit and everything like that. And to me that never made much sense, because I think with the rise of MMA and the popularity of the UFC and everything like that, I think that it draws more interest. I think that now you have a lot of people that are fans of MMA that are now like, oh shit, I got to go learn wrestling. And so it kind of brings a lot of interest back on wrestling. And so the guys that have fought that change, I never really understood that. And with this event, they're trying to kind of like merge them together and bring it back home.
Well, I think they might have even used Uriah Faber as one of the announcers one year, if I'm not mistaken, for an event like this.
Right.
Who's your opponent?
So I'm facing Stephen Abbas, who's it's funny. This is funny, actually. He's a 3-time NCAA champion, and he's a little bit older than me. I think he's 35 or something like that. But when I was younger, I went to the NCAA tournament. Actually, I got his autograph when I was like a kid.
Nice. Is he an Olympian as well, or was an Olympian?
Yeah, so he was an Olympic silver medalist in 2004.
Oh wow! So he's like as legit as they come, except for the guy that beat him, I guess, right?
Yeah, so, I mean he's. To bring it back to your talk with Kyle Sermonera, he's world class.
for sure. So Raleigh, anything you'd like to kind of close with? Let everybody know about either your experience, your MMA training, you know, anything that we didn't get a chance to touch on that you're like, hey, I'd like to let the people know about this.
No, I mean, I hope people can come out and see me wrestle in New York, and if anyone has any questions about Peru, about travel, about coming down here, or anything really, you know, just reach out to me on Facebook. You know, if anyone's planning trips, you know, anyone's welcome to come down and stay, and that's it. It's you know.
Any sponsors, or you want to shout out your gym, and you can give any websites you want. And then what I'll do is I'll put them in the comments, so if people want to contact you via Facebook, they could, you know, go right there, or, you know, your gym or sponsors that you like to thank.
No, my gym, Pitbull Martial Arts Center, and my coach Ivan Iberico, like I said, you know, they've done a lot for me, and always been there. It's really like a family down here. So just those guys, and you know, that's it. I you know, I appreciate you inviting me on the show. I had a great time talking with you today.
Well, this is definitely awesome. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you'll enjoy your time when you come back to the States. I'm assuming you'll see your family for the holidays, so have a good holidays. And
yeah, it worked out perfectly.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you being on.
Thank you.